Well, hello everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. My next special guest is creator and writer Mr. Noah Alperin, here to talk about Atrocity. Noah, how are you doing on this great weekend, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm really excited to talk about this title and learn a little bit more about you, and then hopefully, send some folks over to Indiegogo so that they could back your latest title, man.
Yeah.
Before we jump into that, can you? I ask a lot of creators this. Can you let me know, like, in your life, where a passion for storytelling started, and was there someone in your life that really helped you have that kind of a passion?
Yeah. So my passion for storytelling, I started originally kind of with film. That's where I went to school for and what kind of brought me out to Los Angeles. Um, and then I kind of started to find comics as a medium. Like my wife May, she's my biggest supporter. She's always been there. And when I started making this move to comics, she was always there for me.
Yeah,
And that's someone that like constantly inspires me. She's a filmmaker, a lot smarter than I am. And that's someone who just pushes me to be better creatively. And then I've also friends that have shown me comics that have introduced me to stuff I've read that has made me want to be a better writer. Um, because because of my film background, I hadn't always read everything. And then one of my friends took me to a comic store and was just like, okay, if you want to get into comics, you gotta read this, 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 this. And one of the titles we picked up was Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil,
it's a good
uh,
run.
which is just unbelievably good. In my opinion. I think like if someone asked me like advice for getting into writing comics, my first thing would be like, well, why are you asking me? There's a lot more qualified people to ask. I'd say just read the greats.
Yeah.
Um, and like for me personally, I love classics, but I'd definitely say like last 20-ish years, I think have been some like great comics. And yeah, so all of that reading and then people around me who are creative, all of that kind of is what brings me into storytelling.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And that run by Chip Zdarsky, I think it's probably one of the best things he's ever written, to be quite
Oh
honest.
yeah.
And he's a good writer. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, that's a really good answer, my friend. I love it. Oh, say let's talk about Atrocity, man. Very interesting stuff going on here. Before we kind of dig into the actual Indiegogo, like when did you start to kind of map out the storyline for this, how long you've been sitting on it before you've actually brought it to the pages of a comic book?
Yeah. So I'd been sitting on this idea for a bit. I kind of want to do something in the post-apocalyptic kind of genre. To me, that's always just been something that has just been a big like anxiety of mine. Of just like, what if the world just ended?
Yeah,
And there's a lot of that stuff out there. Some really good stuff too. But you always want to find a way to like tell the story in your way. And that's kind of where I found like the mystical element of it. And the kind of mixing of like different genres and different like aesthetics. And yeah, so I started writing it. And this was my first comic. So I was used to writing things in like the screenplay format because of the film background. And then when converting it to the comic, I learned that like, oh, you need to condense it a lot because 30 minutes on screen is going to look really different than 30 pages on a comic. And especially when you're kind of doing like the finances of it too, you realize like a page is pretty valuable. Like you need to be as efficient as possible. There's no wasted time. There's no wasted like pages. You can't like mess around. I think especially yeah, when you're kind of figuring out the business of it. Um, it's just learning this great process of like creating comics. That's been awesome. But yeah, so I'd say it's sitting on it for a while, and then I just like I really made the push when I started really finding my love for comics. And I thought this story, because originally wrote the story as a screenplay, but I was like, I think this really works as a comic. Um, because I do think there is a difference between things that work better as films and stories that work better as comics. Because I think comics are a very unique medium in the way they present information. Um, like if seen like a great writer who like uses panels super well, that's something that I'm just like, you can't recreate that anywhere else. And so I think when I realized, I was like, this is a comic. Like I need to write this as a comic. And it kind of mixed in, my fears of the apocalypse, but I also want to write something hopeful, but kind of dark. And, after rewrites and rewrites and rewrites, we had Atrocity.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting that kind of mindset between film and comic book, the need to kind of condense and yeah, I wonder how hard that transition is for someone like you who actually went to school to write screenplays and now you're coming to a comic book. I mean, how long did it kind of take you to kind of figure out like, wow, if I adapt what I currently already have, this could be a 400-page novel as opposed to a 30-page comic book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, was that transition a little bit hard, or did it take you a little bit, or was it a pretty smooth transition once you figured it out?
Um, I would say it was difficult for me, but it was smooth because of the people who helped me.
Awesome.
Um, like it did not have to be that like not to say it was easy, but the transition didn't have to be that easy. Like it could have been really difficult if I was just on my own.
Mhm.
But, we had people read it, and then eventually when I brought on my artist Diego Guerra, he was like awesome. Like I'm gonna sing his praises like this entire podcast. Because he's way more experienced than I am. And he was someone who definitely like on top of being, a great artist and like doing great stuff for the comic, he taught me a lot. Like, he'd be like, printing has got to be this, this, and this. It might seem this way, but we have to be working in this way to get it to, be readable, or this idea, is going to come off this certain way in ways that I didn't even think about, right? Like there's a lot of things when we read comics that we don't realize is going on behind the scenes. And yeah, he was great. He drew it, he colored it, and he lettered it all in one.
Nice.
And he worked consistently, and I think the art turned out great.
Yeah.
And yeah, that he was awesome. And the people around me who were like reading, giving me notes was awesome. And that made the transition a lot easier than it would have been if I just, gone on it alone.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, that's I think a good segue into the actual Indiegogo. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's take a look at it right now. That way, people could kind of see what you're talking about here. So here we go. Here is the actual Indiegogo. You got 24 days left. I feel like you're actually off to a really good start, especially if this is your first go at campaigning 34%, and you still got 24 days left. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's a good ratio for you, Noah. So congratulations on that. Obviously, you still got some space to go, but you have plenty of time to do it. So yeah, check it out. Here is the artwork that we were kind of talking about. If you want to kind of walk us through it, I'd love to kind of go right here, man. Can you give us kind of your elevator pitch of what fans could expect from Atrocity?
Yeah. So my elevator pitch, very quick. Atrocity is a post-apocalyptic horror comic about ancient gods fighting over what is left of Earth after nuclear war. Um, and that is kind of like what that's like the basic synopsis, but I think there's a lot more going on. And it might not seem that way from the first issue, but there's kind of like a thing unraveling between these different powerful beings that are gonna kind of be seen as the story progresses. And with the Indiegogo, I'm very excited. A lot of people have, backed the comic. Very exciting, and I'm very thankful to everyone who has. And it's been a great learning experience. I think one other thing about being a comic creator, you kind of have to wear a bunch of hats, right? You got to be a writer,
Yeah.
you got to be a salesman. And that's been super, super, super interesting experience. Um, and yeah, and everything, all the great things I've been hearing, from people, and you know, and all like the really just like people just really putting themselves like out there for me, which is strange. Like even like you in the show, like I reached out on Instagram and I saw all your followers. I was like, there's no way he responds. And now I'm on the show. And yeah, and so if you do want to support the comic, right, we have a bunch of tiers for different ways for people to, based on kind of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, right, so you'll get the digital copy for $15. We should be getting that out pretty soon. Right, it doesn't take a lot to like get that ready, right? We have that, I think, pretty close. I think pretty close to when the campaign ends, we'll be able to get that out. Then the printed copy. Once we get to all of the copies printed, I have like a printing vendor that I feel pretty good about. Once we get we see how many we're going to be looking at, because I want to let the campaign go out and see kind of what the demand is. Um, and then we'll start getting those out. So if you want printed copy, there's also a signed printed copy if you want. And then finally, like the final tier, we name in the next comic. There will be like an acknowledgement section in the next printed comic, and we'll get it into digital copy too. And if you want to get your name in that, that would be the tier for you.
Nice.
Um, and I think we're considering, or at least I'm considering doing a Kickstarter as well once this campaign ends, because I know that's kind of a different market too, and I want to let people, all sorts of people be able to back the comic and get their copy.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's smart to do. And yeah, excuse me, Kickstarter. I mean, there's so many comics on there, and
Yeah.
people are used to shopping for comics on Kickstarter. So yeah, I think that's I think a lot of people do that, to be honest. A lot of people I have on the show do that. They use Fund My Comic as well. Some people do all
Mhm.
three. Like there's a lot of different options, and there's some really good sites to kind of work with in order to get your work out there. So, now this is great, man. And then who did the cover for you?
Yep, that's all Diego.
Oh, Diego did that as well. Yeah, the
Yep.
cover looks pretty awesome, man.
Oh,
Is
thank you.
there,
Yeah.
are you able to kind of talk a little bit to who this character is without giving too much away? And does this character, a lot of times when people are writing a story, they take people that are important to them in their real life and they kind of include them a little bit into the story, obviously changing a lot of things. I didn't know if something like that is happening as well.
Yeah, I mean, with this comic, I would hope I didn't base it off anyone I know, or at least
Okay.
I'd be very insulted if that was the case.
Yeah, that could be bad, right? You might not have that friend anymore.
But on the cover, we have Alora and this other character who I just for now
Yeah,
am calling Skinless, because they might be involved in kind of some other stuff later on.
nice.
But Alora is the leader of this kind of resistance movement that's going on in this like post-apocalyptic world. Because after the apocalypse, the government has kind of taken control of the city and really like created this oppressive atmosphere. And she's part of this resistance group that might start using the powers or these ancient powers to further their cause. And Alora, while she's leading this movement, is kind of suffering from her own, radiation sickness, as a lot of people are. So it's this kind of like race against the clock to like create this better world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it looks pretty cool, man. Everybody
Thank
that's
you.
watching, I'm gonna put the link below, Noah, to make it really easy for people to click on and head over there. Like I said, there's still 25 days left, so lots of opportunity to get in on this title and the back. So congratulations on that. Here are some of the interiors for people to look at. It looks like we have three different samples. I don't know if you want to speak to any of this or if you can, Noah, without giving anything away in the story.
Oh, yeah, of course. So this would be the example, of one of the gods.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the way Diego draws is just, oh my, like I
Yeah.
I can't like even like comprehend how good it is. Like seeing like there's no like better feeling than seeing kind of your writing come to life in this way and having such a talented artist like portray that is just like it's awesome.
Yeah. I get that, man, for sure. And this one right here.
Yep, this is one of our other main characters, Morg. She is like a servant of the god.
Mm,
The gods have very, for being gods, they have very limited access while they're on Earth.
mm.
So they kind of need to get people to do what they want. And Morg would be the servant for the god on like the previous panel.
Oh, okay. Sweet. So they work very closely together, it sounds
Yes.
like. And then I assume this is at the very beginning of the
Yes.
comic.
This is the first page.
Yeah.
Um,
Just from what you
yeah.
said, it sounds like this is how it all starts, right?
Yeah, it was cool. Because I was just like, yeah, I want to like, the first page is gonna be absolute destruction. Yeah, and obviously, this is a very dark story, so backers should keep that in mind. Um, and yeah, and it was just such a cool first like page to get from Diego too. Um, because yeah, this was the first page he ever sent me. He sent me sketches, obviously, of like character designs and stuff, but this was the first page he sent me, and I was blown away, so to speak.
Yeah, no pun intended, right? I love it. I love it. Well, like I said, I'll have everything down below to make it super easy. Also, all your socials and all that good stuff know so people could follow you. My assumption is this is not a one and done deal, that you have some plans for Atrocity. There's going to be other issues, assume,
Oh yeah.
in the arc.
Even if we don't meet our goal, like we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Um, because I don't know. I think there's a story here. I think there's a story to tell, and I plan on like going through it. And I'm really excited about the future of this comic. And I think a lot of backers seem interested. So I'm really excited for them to get their hands on the comic.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, being or getting your start kind of in film, and correct me if I'm wrong, especially as you're writing a storyline for film, it's a very personal experience. Then you come over to comic books, right? And your story doesn't happen unless you have a collaborator from an
Right.
art perspective. Can you kind of talk about the learning of collaborating and how important that has been to bring the story to life on pages as opposed to
Yeah.
film?
Yeah. Their collaboration is a big part of comics, and I think that definitely takes like a level of vulnerability. Like you have to really like put your pages out to someone and be like, hey, like I need you or I'd like for you to like join me in this process. And like because I think for writers, even if it's like, work for hire or you're writing for like another publisher with like an IP or something, you're putting something of yourself in the writing, no matter what you're writing. Um, and when you're asking someone to draw it, right, you're asking them to also put a piece of themselves into it, right? Because you're creating the story together, right? Um, and yeah, it's a really cool process. I found it at least to be really like really unique because there's no really I can't think of like another kind of medium where you're working so closely with like one person and they're giving their ideas, you're giving your ideas, and you kind of come up with this thing. And yeah, it was awesome. And I think you learn a lot about like, the artist you're working with, kind of how they see being creative. Because, everyone has their own ideas and their own kind of like methods of creating art.
Yeah,
And just seeing different perspectives, I found that to be like very rewarding.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, that's I couldn't agree with you more. I think that collaboration between writer, artist, and in some cases, right, you have the penciler, the inker, and then you
Yeah.
have the letterer, like all that good stuff. I think you're very fortunate to find someone talented enough to do all three of those things.
Oh yes, I'm very
It's
very
impressive.
fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the collaboration is crucial in storytelling because man, the art has to tell a large portion of the story because you're limited with thought bubbles and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, no, that's pretty awesome, Noah. So Noah, with this title coming out, man, like, do you have any plans once the title comes out to maybe hit some cons in the
Yeah.
SoCal area? Maybe get a table, or is that a little too soon?
Yeah, I've definitely been looking around. Because the very good thing about living in this like area is that there's kind of a lot going on. And I've definitely noticed a lot of like this big comic community in LA. Like there's a lot of events that happen here. A lot of stores have like creator signings, and even for like smaller creators, right? There's like they have these events, and yeah, I definitely want to get involved in that. I think it'd be so cool to meet people who like you know love comics in the way that like I do or you do or like other people do. 'Cause yeah, I went to LA Comic Con last year just as a fan, and just being in that environment is so cool. And being like, because I think as comic fans, we might feel very like isolated because it's not movies, it's not video games, it's kind of like this thing that seems more niche. But then when you go to these like conventions, you're just like, oh, there's so many fans who are like into these like into these stories that like I think are really cool too. And to be there as a creator would be like a huge privilege.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, SoCal. I live in Texas, but I spent 49 years in California in SoCal, and
Yeah,
there's some really good shows with WonderCon. Obviously, San Diego, which is really
right.
expensive, but it's pretty cool. And then LA, which always happens toward the end of the year. So I think WonderCon is coming up, if I'm not
Yeah, it
mistaken.
is coming up. I would love to go. I think it might be too late to go as like a creator.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, you got to
but
do
I
it
would
once
really
a year.
like to go as a fan. They got some cool people. I think Jim Lee's going this year.
Yeah, yeah. Usually,
Um,
Todd McFarlane has gone a few times.
yep.
There'll be some big names at WonderCon. Outside of San Diego, I think WonderCon and SoCal is number two, and then LA would be number three. LA
Mhm.
is still, which is great for indie creators, it's still small enough to where I feel like you get a lot of amazing indie creators at LA, whereas
Yeah.
WonderCon is almost to that point where, you have so many bigger names that, some of the smaller names might get a little lost, which it's kind of unfortunate, but they're both very comic centric. Whereas San Diego, you're dealing with, all the movies and Hollywood and stuff like that. So which is
Yeah.
great, a lot of traffic. But a lot of people are there for different reasons, which is cool.
Right.
There's something for everybody. But WonderCon in LA, I feel like are still very comic focused, which is pretty
Mhm.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love about LA Comic Con, like the artists kind of area.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff that like I had no idea about, and like it's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in LA, there's some amazing creators and writers. So that's awesome, man.
It was so cool. Like I get to meet like Jeremy Adams.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Jeremy he's probably my favorite writer right now. I mean, he's
oh yeah,
amazing.
his Aquaman's great. I've actually been
Man, his Green Lantern run is
Mhm.
incredible, and then he has a Flash Gordon that he's doing. Yeah, he's killing it right now.
Super
And then
nice
his
guy too.
Flash run, he had a Flash run for almost 2.5 years, which
Yeah.
is amazing with Wally West. So yeah, he's incredible.
Yeah, he's awesome. And like yeah, it's crazy being there and just seeing like, oh wait, that's Jeremy Adams. He's just
Yeah.
like at a table and I could like walk up to him and say
Yep.
like hi and like yeah, and it's just like such a unique experience
Yeah.
because yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Well, Noah, tell everybody how they could follow you on socials.
Yeah, I mostly am on Instagram.
Yep.
So like follow me there. I post a lot about Atrocity.
As you should.
But I just post about Atrocity and my wife. Those are like the
Yeah.
two things I post about.
That's pretty
Um,
smart as a married man. Yeah, I would keep it simple like that, my friend.
and yeah, so follow me there, and
Is
I'll
it just first, last name? That's it?
yep. I think there's I should have been
No, you're
more
good. You're good. Yeah, yeah.
specific. Yeah, so I think it's like Apologies. Yep,
Yeah,
just first name
there's an
underscore last name.
underscore. Yeah, just an underscore. Yeah, you're good.
Um, and yeah, so any updates about Atrocity will be there.
Sweet.
Um, and when we do the Kickstarter, keep an eye out for that. If like people, more if the Kickstarter kind of gets more traction, that might be something we move towards
Yeah.
or emphasize more in the second issue.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, any updates will be there, shipping, anything. And if you have any issues or if any backers have any issues, like let me know there. I'll probably be fastest to respond. Email's fine too, but like I'll be fastest to respond there because I know some people have had like payment issues and I know shipping can get complicated, but yeah, there would be the best.
Awesome, Noah. Well, Noah, I'm so happy for you with your first title, man. Fingers crossed that everything goes through. You have plenty of time to hit your goal. You are going into what we call the Valley of Death, which is kind of that middle of your time frame where
Yeah.
everyone kind of just sits back, and then that last week it kind of ramps up again.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're doing the right thing, man. Hit as many pods as you can to talk about it, so you don't have such a big valley. But
Thank
I'm
you so
happy to have
much.
you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Like this is awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I'm really happy to meet other creators and to help continue to build the community. And it's my pleasure having you on. You're welcome anytime, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, have a great one and we'll talk soon, all right?
All right.
All right, take it easy, my friend.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.